You say you're tired, but you slept enough. You ate, you rested, you had time, and you still quit. Not because you were exhausted, because the task felt uncomfortable, because pushing through felt harder than stopping, because your mind gave you an excuse, and you took it. Listen carefully, because this excuse is ruining your life. Let's be clear about something. Tiredness is real. Physical exhaustion exists. Mental fatigue is legitimate, but that's not what you're experiencing most of the time. Most of the time, you're just uncomfortable, and you've trained yourself to interpret discomfort as a reason to stop. You feel resistance, and you call it tiredness. You feel boredom, and you call it burnout. You feel the mental effort required to focus, and you call it exhaustion. But that's not. It's just discomfort. And you're awake to it, because somewhere along the way you learned that comfort is the default, that ease is normal, that struggle means something is wrong. So the moment you feel resistance, you retreat. You tell yourself you're tired, you tell yourself you need a break. You tell yourself it's okay to stop, and it feels logical, it feels reasonable, it feels like self-care, but it's not. It's weakness disguised as wisdom. And the more you do it, the weaker you get. The lower your tolerance for discomfort becomes, the faster you quit when things get hard. Until you reach a point where everything feels exhausting, where every task feels overwhelming, where you're tired all the time, not because you're actually depleted, but because your capacity for effort has shrunk to nothing. That's the lie of tiredness. The comfortable lie that lets you quit without feeling guilty. But you should feel guilty, because you're not protecting yourself, you're sabotaging yourself. The real problem isn't that you're tired. The real problem is that you have low pain tolerance, weak discipline, no standards. You've never trained yourself to push through discomfort. You've never built the mental muscle that allows you to keep going when you don't feel like it. You've never developed the capacity to do hard things when they feel hard. So you avoid them, you delay them, you quit them, and you justify it with the word tired. Because tired sounds legitimate. Tired sounds like a good reason. But it's not. It's just the word you use when you don't want to admit you're choosing comfort over growth, that you're choosing ease over effort, that you're choosing weakness over strength. And that choice, made repeatedly, becomes your identity. You become someone who quits, someone who can't handle pressure, someone who needs perfect conditions to perform, someone weak. But here's the truth that should give you hope. Weakness is trainable. It's not permanent. It's not who you are forever. Discipline is learnable. You're not born with it. You build it, rep by rep, day by day. Strength is built, not found. You don't wait to feel strong. You act until you become strong. And that shift from waiting to acting is everything. Because right now, you're waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel energized, waiting to feel ready. But those feelings don't come before action. They come after. You don't feel motivated and then start. You start, and then motivation follows. You don't feel strong, and then push. You push, and then strength develops. You don't feel disciplined and then execute. You execute, and then discipline becomes automatic. That's the order. Action first, feeling second. And once you understand that, you stop negotiating with your emotions. You stop asking yourself if you feel like it. You stop waiting for the perfect internal state. You just move, regardless of how you feel. That's discipline. Not when it's easy. When it's hard, showing up without motivation, that's when it counts. Working while mentally tired, that's when it matters. Doing the task anyway, that's when you build strength. Because discipline isn't built in moments of inspiration, it's built in moments of resistance. When every part of you wants to stop, and you don't. When your mind offers a dozen excuses, and you ignore them. When quitting feels easier than continuing, and you continue anyway. That's the training. That's the work. That's how you go from weak to strong. Not through one heroic effort. through 1,000 small refusals to quit, through repetition, through consistency, through the daily decision to push past discomfort. And over time, your capacity expands. What used to feel impossible becomes normal. What used to require willpower becomes automatic. Not because tasks get easier, but because you get stronger. And comfort is the enemy. Not because rest is bad, but because you've made comfort your default, your requirement, your non-negotiable. You need to feel good to work. You need to feel rested to perform. You need to feel ready to start. But life doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. Strength doesn't work that way. Growth demands resistance, discomfort, pressure. And if you only move when you're comfortable, you never grow. You just maintain. Or worse, you decline. Because comfort makes you soft. It lowers your standards. It shrinks your capacity. It teaches you that the moment something feels hard, you should stop. That the moment you feel resistance, you should retreat. And that lesson, repeated over months and years, destroys you. It destroys your discipline, your mental toughness, your ability to handle anything difficult. Until you become someone who can't do hard things. Someone who quits at the first sign of discomfort. Someone weak. But you can change that, starting now, by refusing comfort as your standard. By choosing resistance as your teacher. By seeking discomfort as your training ground. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand that ease kills progress. That if you want to become strong, you have to do strong things. And strong things feel hard. They require mental effort. They require physical effort. They require the ability to push through when everything in you wants to stop. And that ability is mental strength. The kind that's trained, not inherited. You train it by controlling your inner dialogue, by refusing self-pity, by staying composed under stress. When your mind says I can't, you respond with I will. When your emotions say I'm too tired, you respond with I'm capable. When your body says I need to stop, you respond with not yet. That's the conversation, the internal battle, the war between comfort and growth. And every time you choose growth, you get stronger. Every time you choose discipline, you build capacity. Every time you refuse the excuse, you waken its power over you. Until one day, the excuses stop working. They don't convince you anymore. They don't control you anymore. Because you've trained yourself to move regardless, to execute regardless, to perform regardless. That's the shift in identity. The transformation from someone who quits to someone who finishes. You no longer negotiate with weakness. You don't debate whether you should do the task. You just do it. Excuses lose power. They still appear, but they don't stop you. They're just noise in the background. Discipline becomes automatic. You don't need motivation. You don't need perfect conditions. You just execute. Because that's who you are now. Someone who doesn't quit when tired. Someone who doesn't stop when uncomfortable. Someone who finishes what they start. Regardless of how they feel, weakness feels safe. Discipline builds monsters, not the violent kind. The unstoppable kind. The kind that doesn't need motivation, doesn't need encouragement, doesn't need perfect conditions. The kind that just moves, relentlessly, consistently, powerfully. And you're becoming that. Not overnight, but through repetition, through the daily decision to push past tiredness, to ignore excuses, to execute anyway. That's the training, that's the work, that's what separates the weak from the strong. Not talent, not genetics, not circumstances, just the willingness to be uncomfortable, to stay in the resistance. To keep moving when everything says stop. And now, you lock in the new standard, the rule you don't break. You don't quit when tired. You assess. You ask, am I actually exhausted? Or am I just uncomfortable? And if it's discomfort, you push through. You finish the task. You complete the work. You stop only when the work is done. Not when you feel like stopping. When the task is complete. Feelings don't decide actions. You decide actions. Feelings are information, not instructions. You feel tired. That's data. It doesn't mean you stop. It means you're working. It means you're in resistance. It means you're building strength. So you keep going, not because it feels good, because it builds you. And that becomes your identity. Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who doesn't make excuses. Someone who executes. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what matters. Because strength isn't built in one day. It's built over 1,000 days of refusing to quit. Of pushing past tiredness. Of ignoring excuses. Of doing the work anyway. And at the end of those 1,000 days, you're not the same person. You're stronger, mentally and physically. You're more disciplined, more capable, more reliable. Not because you found motivation, but because you stopped needing it. Not because tasks got easier, but because you got tougher. Not because you stopped feeling tired, but because you stopped letting tiredness control you. That's the transformation. From weak to strong. From excuse-driven to discipline-driven. From someone who quits when uncomfortable to someone who pushes through regardless. And it starts with one decision, one moment, one task, where you feel tired, and you do it anyway. Where you want to quit, and you finish anyway. Where your mind offers an excuse, and you refuse it anyway. That's the moment, the choice, the training. And every time you make that choice, you get stronger. Every time you refuse the excuse, you build discipline. Every time you push through, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And that proof, that evidence you gather in private, is what builds unshakable confidence. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that knows it can handle hard things because it's done hard things. The kind that doesn't fear discomfort because it's trained in discomfort. The kind that doesn't quit because quitting isn't an option anymore. That's who you're becoming. Not through motivation, through discipline. Not through feeling strong, through acting strong until you become strong. Not through waiting for the right moment, through making this moment the right one. So stop lying to yourself. Stop hiding behind the word tired. Start pushing. Start executing. Start proving to yourself that you're stronger than your excuses. Because you are. You just haven't trained it yet. But you will. Starting now. Comment no excuses if you're done lying to yourself.